reaching its acme, which shall be specifications citing the events of 1943.
I go.
Hey, Brian C.
What's up? I'm Chewy.
I'm Henry.
And I'm Reporter Phillips coming here with your news.
I'll be talking about the battle in the Pacific. In the last weeks, the war began to move to the Pacific. Recently, the Battle of Tarawa has come to an end after 3 days of fighting. It was located in the Gilbert Islands and began on November 20th and ended on November 23rd. At the beginning, 4,500 Japanese soldiers arrived with an exceptional amount of supplies, and they also came very prepared. They also were ready to start the battle against the United States Marine Corps. The soldiers from Japan fought to the very last man, but even with all their efforts, the United States Marine Corps' power was able to overwhelm the Japanese soldiers. All the Japanese soldiers were either killed or captured. And for the United States, they had 1,000 casualties, but they also had 2,000 wounded left. The United States Marine Corps pulled out with the win, and hopefully we can continue to do the same.
The tide is really changing in the favor of the Allies. They're able to push the Axis out of North Africa and force a surrender from Italy. January 18th, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising begins. 50 bombers mount first all-American raid on Germany. Jewish prisoners are being deported from the Cowles ghetto.
This year we witnessed the Battle of Stalingrad. This is the first major defeat of the German army. From August 23rd to February 2nd, over 200,000 Nazi personnel were set to capture Stalingrad using the 6th Army. The 6th Army being a field army unit for the German forces. They battled for months against the Red Army. The Red Army is the army of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic. They battled for months on in Stalingrad, and then the Axis forces lost large sums of ammunition and food and were forced to surrender. In this war this year, the U.S. has almost 2,000 ships built for battle. The Navy has over 1 million troops deployed for this war. The Marines have over 300,000. The Coast Guard have over 100,000. This is one of the biggest wars that we've ever faced. Hopefully we can make it.
Now let's talk about the naval situation in the Atlantic. There are many different battles over this year. On March 16th through the 19th, the British convoys HX-229 and SC-122 were formed to protect from German invasion. 22 ships and 1 U-boat sunk in the largest North Atlantic U-boat Wolfpack attack. A Wolfpack attack is a naval tactic typically used by the Germans. Their U-boat movements are much more tightly together compared to the Americans. On April 29th through May 6th, the ONS 5 through 12 convoy ships and 6 U-boats sunk in the last major North Atlantic U-boat Wolfpack attack. This led to many fatalities on both sides of the attack. Later in the year, on November 26th, the Battle of Cape St. George, the American destroyers intercept the Tokyo Express and sink 3 Japanese destroyers. This was the last engagement of surface ships so far this year. Near the end of this year, on December 28, Operation Stonewall occurred. Operation Stonewall was a mission to intercept blockade ships. This was sparked by France, where Germany remains control of. Allied ships and aircraft sink 3 German destroyers in the Bay of Biscay. And that's all for this year.
Now let's talk about what's happening in Sicily. The Allied invasion of Sicily, codenamed Operation Husky, was a major campaign of World War II in which the Allies took the island of Sicily from the Axis power. It began with a large amphibious and airborne operation, followed by a 6-week land campaign, and initiated the Italian campaign. Husky began on the night of July 9th and ended on August 17th. Strategically, Husky achieved the goal set out by the Allies' planners. Axis air, land, and naval forces from the island and the Mediterranean sea lanes were open for Allied merchant ships. Benito Mussolini was toppled from power in Italy, and the way was open for the Allied invasion of Italy. The German leader, Adolf Hitler, canceled a major offensive at Kursk after only a week in part to divert forces in Italy, resulting in a reduction of German strength on the Eastern Front. The collapse of Italy necessitated German troops replacing the Italians in Italy and to a lesser extent the Balkans, resulting in 1/5 of the entire German army being diverted from the east to southern Europe.
The Soviet Union has already had many issues throughout the year. They started on the Axis side. Later, in 1941, the Soviet Union had a falling out with Germany. This was after Hitler betrayed their trust by terminating Operation Barbarossa. The Soviets did not appreciate that, so here we are. The Soviets are on our side, and since falling out with Germany, they have been attempting to get all of their land back. They wanted to push back at Germany and push back hard. However, it was a very risky play. The Soviets had an estimated 2.5 million casualties in pushing into the southern front. This year, the Soviets plan to retake Poland from its captures. Stalin wanted to play heavy defense against Hitler and the Nazis. He was very disappointed at how easy Germany invaded Stalingrad, so defense was key for success on the front. Germany was overwhelmed by the amount of readiness Stalin showed for these efforts. They were on the offense, but soon Germany backed down at the sight of a determined Stalin. By the end of this year, the Soviets have overtaken half of what Germany took in the last 2 years. This is great news because it shows that the Allies are improving on the war. The Soviet army has intensely increased since the end of 1941. This is due to Stalin moving the production factories to the Far East, away from Germany's reach. In November of this year, Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt all met up to speak tactics on fighting against Germany. Stalin and Roosevelt ended up ganging up on Churchill to increase the pressure on the Eastern Front. Churchill is staying strong to his points because he believes that Germany is very weak through the soft underbelly upwards through Italy. The Allies have already invaded through this direction, so the parties later agreed to launch a cross-channel invasion through France in the upcoming year. Although the Soviet Union has had a few struggles early into the war, they have proven to be a very strong ally for us overall. Now I'm going to be talking about the sacrifices women made at home. Before the war, women mostly stayed at home and did things around the house. With our men in the war, our women are taking a lot of responsibility across our country. They are manufacturing items in factories and working on shipyards. Recently, on May 29th, Rosie the Riveter emerged on the scene. Rosie represents all the women who stood up during the war and replaced men's jobs. She's encouraged women to join defense industries. Her catchphrase is, "We can do it." It is meant to inspire women across the nation. It seems to be working, as before the war, only 1% of women worked in the U.S. aircraft industry. Now, at 310,000, nearly 65% of the industry's total workforce are made of women. They're taking it upon themselves to work very hard and maintain everything at home. They are also majorly contributing to the war with production in factories. Currently, many factories are producing items we need for the war, like munitions. After it is all said and done, it may be women who win us this war.